Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Security and Truth, where we get our security from the truth, which is God's word and not what the world says. And so today we're going to be talking about a sensitive topic. I'm going to be sharing with you guys a chapter in my book that I wrote, Pretty Suffering. In the book, I write about my life, how I grew up, with a turbulent childhood and young adulthood, and how God completely changed my life around. There's so much in this book, so many things that I talk about. And a lot of it is not pretty, a lot of it was not easy to talk about and, write a book about for the whole world to see. It was challenging. A lot of it was embarrassing. A lot of it, I was ashamed about some of the things that I did. And, God intervened and changed my life completely around. And now I can tell my story with confidence without the guilt and the shame. And so today I'm going to be talking about how I was molested as a child. If that's something that, triggers you or you don't want to hear about, then you can just click off of this video. And so I wouldn't recommend this video for kids. I'm not posting this for kids. And so I'm just going to go ahead and read. Okay, and so this is going to be, I'm just going to read a few paragraphs, not much, just like 3 paragraphs. So Sal that's not his real name. I just used fake names in the book. Sal is someone that my mother brought home who was her boyfriend, and she used to leave us with him a lot. And so one day Sal took all of us kids to the park. He told my siblings to wait at the park until we returned. He took me alone into an unfamiliar apartment right across the street. I was a little nervous because I didn't understand why we were there alone. He picked me up, laid me down on the floor, and started to caress my face. I started to tremble because I didn't know what he was going to do to me. It felt surreal. He unbuttoned my top and pulled it over my head. There I was, sitting topless in front of this grown man, and I was scared to death. Then he stood me up and slowly removed my pants. I started to cry, and he said, "Shh, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Trust me." He laid me on the floor while he undressed himself. I lay there watching him, scared out of my mind. It's almost like sitting and watching someone getting ready to kill you. Like you just don't know what they're getting ready to do. I felt the most terrifying feeling. I was crying and trembling with fear. After he was done undressing, he got on top of me and forced himself inside me. I was in so much pain. I was around 9 years old at the time. My crying and discomfort didn't seem to bother him at all. When he was finished with me, he stood up and proceeded to masturbate himself until he ejaculated. And these images, even though now I'm 48 years old, at the time I wrote the book, I was 46. These images are in my head forever. I will never forget them. It's like it happened yesterday. When somebody violates you this way, it almost does something to your psyche. Like it almost takes something humanistic from you. Like you don't even feel like a real person. Like you just kind of feel like I'm just here, something to be used and abused. Like I'm just not even a real human worthy of love. Someone made in God's image. Like you don't even feel that. That's taken from you. That's stolen from you. And so because I was abused in this way, it kind of set my life, on a course of destruction, really. this abuse followed me from a young child into my young adulthood. And, in the book, I write about, what that journey looked like, and how devastating it was. And so, as an adult now, as a disciple, at times I had to wrestle with God about this. Like, how can a good God allow an innocent young 9-year old girl to be violated in this way? Like, what kind of God, would allow this? And, at some point I had to wrestle with God and ask, like, God, why did you allow this to happen to me? Why do you allow this to happen to any child? Statistics show that I want to say it's 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 women are molested by someone that they know. It's always somebody that they know. Take note of that if you have children. It's always usually by somebody that they know and trust. And it's like, why would God allow this to happen to anybody? And one thing that God revealed to me is that when this was happening, because it happened multiple times, He was just as grieved and hurt as I was. And because here is His innocent daughter, being violated, her innocence being stolen from her, in a way that is disgusting. You know what I mean? So He, in those moments, was hurting, devastated by what was going on, deeply, deeply sorrowful for what happened. God, in His sovereignness, He created us. He created me. He created that person who has allowed evil to overtake him and to steal the innocence of a young girl. But God Himself helped me to understand that He knows what it's like to feel like God isn't with me, because that's what I felt like. God, if you were there, God, you could have protected me. I felt like God wasn't there with me. I was just alone. But if we look at in the Bible, Luke, what can I do with my, okay. Luke chapter 22, verse 44. And it says, and being in anguish, he prayed more earnestly, and his sweat was like drops of blood falling to the ground. Like when Jesus laid down His life for us, like it said that He sweat drops of blood. And I don't think that it was because He was afraid of, going through the whole painful process of being hung on a cross and things of that nature, because He was God in the flesh. He created human beings, So I think that He understood pain. So that's not what He was in anguish over. I think what He was most in anguish over is being separated from the Father at that moment. That's something that He had never known or experienced, right? And so, like I felt like, God, you weren't there, you left me alone. God can relate to that, because on the cross, that is where He felt the separation from God. If we look at Mark verses 15 and 35, it says, 15 and 33, at noon, darkness came over the whole land until 3 in the afternoon. And at 3 in the afternoon, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani. Forgive me how I might be saying that wrong. but it means, my God, why have you forsaken me? Jesus, who is completely perfect in everything that he did, this innocent man is now has been brutally murdered and hung on a cross. And at that moment, he feels, God, why have you forsaken me? I have not done anything wrong. So that separation that he felt, I think we can all relate to when things like this happen to us, when we're violated in these type of ways. We feel like God is not with us. Jesus can relate. He knows what that likes. He knows what that is like. And we look at Hebrews chapter 4, verses 15 and 16, it says, 14 and 15, it says, therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we possess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. God is able to sympathize with us in our weaknesses, and he never wants anyone to be violated in this way. He is grieved. We live in a fallen world, unfortunately, and sometimes people allow evil and sin to take over, and God allows it, but he is grieved by it. And I will never say, I was molested and it happened for a good reason. There was no good reason for it to happen. This person was taken over by his sin, by evil, and he allowed Satan to use him to try and destroy the life of a young girl. That's what it was. And can God use me and my story to encourage others for sure? God does that. He takes the broken pieces and he puts them back together. And he allows us to use those things to encourage and help one another. Again, if there's one huge thing that you take away from this video, just know that whatever it is that you've gone through, whatever way you've been violated, whatever way you've been taken advantage of, whichever way you've been mistreated, there is a God who can relate and who empathizes with you. Thank you so much for being here today. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know below. There'll also be a link to my book in the description box, along with the scriptures that I used today. If you're interested, thank you so much, guys. Have a wonderful day.